Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday to you. Hopefully your week is going well. Today I'd like to discuss another old-timer that many of you have seen on my videos through the years and probably want to know a little bit about him or whatever, and that is Martin Witkowski, the Polish Prince. Martin he's featured on the Lucky 13 along with another student of mine, Dave Herlich. And Martin is another, I would call him the total success story. When Martin came, he was kind of like skinny, just, I think he had done some Aikido when he had lived in Canada. He moved here from Canada, but he's originally from Poland. And we laughed because after a few days, I've never seen this before. His body was just bruised. He's one of those types that bruise easy, and this stuff was rough. And you know what? I thought he was gonna quit. I said, "Well, that's it," But nope. He's stuck through it, and he's very intelligent. He works with computers, and he's a skeptic all the way. And Martin ended up developing this incredible conditioning. Okay, and based on the Lucky 13 training and only the Lucky 13 training, he ended up entering and running and completing the Chicago Marathon. I think the only reason he entered it actually was because he wanted to get to meet Oprah Winfrey. But, Martin is another one who we joked a lot with him. Everybody did. Everybody got along. He could give it as well as he could take it. And as far as his wrestling ability, he never really got into the striking at all. We never did that. Just strictly, learning how to do it. And he became one of those guys that, when other people would come through the gym to work out and to roll with him, they weren't tapping him out. He got very... It's science, really when you think about things, if you just keep things fundamental and are aware of your fundamentals and aware of the things, you become very effective. And that's what Martin was. He was a hell of a guy, very effective. And, Martin became really good buddies, I guess, with Bruce. I haven't talked to Martin in a little while because, again, life goes on. Martin, got married, had a child, or at least I think he got married. But he was always just a great guy to be around. And like I said, he was a skeptic, so in a lot of things we think a lot alike because, we don't just rush to believe. We analyze everything, we look things over, and we take a little more of a scientific approach to things than some other people might. And, Martin... And I don't want this to come off as a negative because it isn't. Martin was your true, typical, everyday guy, okay? He wasn't, tremendously athletic as far as, muscles or this. He wasn't a fanatic, as far as, all gung-ho about, martial arts or anything like that. He was a guy who was, I think at the time, relatively new to Chicago. He was looking for a place to work out, and he just was the right person at the right time, and he is so typical of what you can be, what anyone without any debilitating injuries can become. Okay, when he did that Lucky 13, I mean, his conditioning was fantastic, and by no means was he pushed all the way in the Lucky 13. I mean, he could do more than that at that time. And it's kind of funny because, he kind of ended up having like a little cult following. People would come over here to train and they'd want to meet Martin. They'd want to work out, like physically exercising with him and so on. And, which was kind of cool, and he really, he got his fitness level up there and he did it naturally and he did it part-time. I mean, the guy worked for a living, he was not a gung-ho fighter mentality type of guy where he wanted to fight or compete all the time. This wasn't him. He was just your average Joe who got himself into shape, kept himself into shape, and ended up becoming, very gifted and again, I think a lot of it with Martin is his mind, his intelligence. He was able to digest everything. He was able to, we could show him something and I'll say something to him, or Bruce would say something to him, And he could draw that mental picture. He could, connect the dots, and, he understood, and understanding is the key. If you don't have it up here, you cannot transfer it to your body. And Martin was able to do that, and we had a lot of fun time with Martin. A couple stories of when we drove several hundred miles for tournaments and whatever, and anyway, he was crazy, man. It's all good. So the thing with, well, here's another thing. Because Martin has such a good foundation, that foundations is what stays with you. And again, he is a classic example. He's not a flash. A lot of guys will flash, okay? Meaning they have a lot of athleticism, and they don't really have the fundamental knowledge. And I don't mean just in other sports as well. And when your athleticism tends to wane, there goes your skills. But then again, on the other hand, you have other people who really were never that great athletically. They just did hard work and did fundamentals, and then they're able to, even when they're at an advanced age, they still have a higher skill level. Excuse me. And that's where Martin falls into that category. He'll always have that knowledge. He'll always have that ability to think and to figure things out. He's a very patient guy on the mat. Again, there was nothing flashy. Martin was he was getting dominant with those head scissors. Okay, he clamped those head scissors on you. You're not getting out. And a lot of guys, especially if they came from a jiu-jitsu background, which most of the students that came through did, they didn't really protect their legs, and many times they didn't protect their head from they would think when they were on top or whatever, or even on the bottom, depending on the position, that they were safe. And Martin, because we wrestle, we do a lot of head scissors, which I'm talking is different than a triangle choke. Now, don't get the two mixed up here. And he would, just get them on. He did it to some pro fighters, and they were like amazed, and they're like, "Wow, this is pretty neat stuff." But it's only neat because Martin found his niche. Okay, I think I mentioned that Costa was well-rounded. Excuse me, Costa was, his thing was the double wrist lock. Martin's is the head scissor. Javier was the leg locks. Okay, this is why I was so proud of my gym and proud of the guys and proud of all the work that everybody did together. Nobody was a clone. Okay. Nobody did everything identical. No, certainly nobody tried to be a clone of me or Bruce or whomever. They all had their individuality. And all I can tell you is that Martin was, and is, I say was, I mean, he's alive, at least physically. We don't know about it mentally. Martin is just a hell of a guy and one of the best people I've ever met. Dziękuję bardzo, pan. And I mean that. Thank you very much, Martin, for being in my life, being part of the gym, and let's hook up real soon. I'd like to see you and your family. So it's all good. And Martin is another guy that I think everybody should know. Great man. I'll see you guys tomorrow.